Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and in this video we're going to be talking about 3 things for this Worrisome Blissful Lightcone, Topaz's signature Lightcone in Honkai Star Rail version 1.4, second half as well. Amazing art design, really love it as well. Look at all the cute animals inside, and he also has an amazing waifu Topaz too. And this thing, we're going to talk about it in 3 factors. One is how good it is for Topaz, the second one is how good it is for other characters as well, because we want a Lightcone that is versatile. And of course, last but not least, we'll also be talking about some alternatives that I think are worth considering if you don't want to like burst the bank to spend on this Lightcone, because not everyone has 100 plus pools just lying around and you all might want to use it for a future character too. So first things first, let's look at the base stats of this Lightcone. That's like the super important part. And the first thing I always look at for like a DPS Lightcone is what is the attack stat. The defense HP, it does matter, but not as much as the attack, because this is base attack, which scales us a lot with like attack percentages and a lot of other stuff as well. So 582 is the same as Zila's signature Lightcone, so 5-star limiteds so far have the same amount of attack, whereas it's about 60 higher, or 50 to 60 higher than Cruising in the Stellar Sea. That is of course the free-to-play 5-star Lightcone, as well as the 4-star Battle Pass Lightcone. They both have 529 base attack. 4-star Lightcones are at around 470 plus, if my memory doesn't fail me, so it's about 100 base attack higher. That's the first important thing for us to know, so that now we have like kind of like a benchmarking of where it falls in line. And of course attack matters a lot because it's a DPS character and that's what it's scaled off with. Let's now take a look at the Lightcone's effect. It gives 18% crit rate. This is very strong. 18 is very high, and it also increases follow-up attack damage by 30%, which is very good for in this case Topaz and Numby, which is exactly what her kit needs. And after you apply a follow-up attack, you add this tame state to the enemy target, which stacks twice. So if you have 2 follow-ups, you get a max stacks, and whenever your allies hit the enemy target which is inflicted by this tame state, you basically give them the crit damage increase of up to 24%, because it's 12% times 2, 24%. So this is not only a individual damage buffer, but it's also like helping to buff your team. If you are playing like a follow-up attacking team, you kind of like increase the damage dealt. Very interesting spin on it, means that she is planning to be played as a very strong DPS, but can also work in like second, 2 DPS, 3 DPS teams, which we might see as a trend moving forward as well. Works very well with a kit. I think it's very super synergetic, probably the best Lightcone for Topaz and Numby. Not only a stats, that's like what we understand, but the second that comes close to this is going to be very far apart, especially for Topaz and Numby due to the amount of buffing this gets. Very strong, but I think the biggest thing that all of us know like back of our mind is this is kind of tricky to actually use on other characters in the game currently, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But let's first talk about what are the alternatives if you don't want to spend 100 pools for this character. Let's jump in the main game menu to talk about the rest of them. Okay, and out of all of them, I looked through most of them, and I think there are a few. Maybe I'll just talk about the ones that I think are super relevant. First, of course, Cruising in the Stellar Sea, you get nice amounts of crit rate to help you replace that amount. 8% at max is like 16% here, and conditional attack increase 16% with a good amount of attack. This is very general. It doesn't give follow-up damage. It can be applied to most characters. I think if you are in doubt of what to use, Cruising in the Stellar Sea is always a great starting point. But there are 2 things that can deviate away from this. And the first thing, of course, is I think Sleep Like the Dead is worth considering, especially if you have crit rate buffers on your team. You're over capping on crit already. This 30% could be an interesting way to play on it for her. Because it also gives a lot of damage increase to Numby as well. Crit damage is much better than, for example, this second part here, which is basic attack or skill, which she would likely also have a part of a kit relying on the follow-up attacks. So this part here, not as useful as this part, but crit damage is always still relevant. So I think Sleep Like This is very good, and it also has a pretty high attack here of 582 compared to Cruising the Stellar Sea's attack of 529, which is significantly less too. So these 2 5-star options I think are definitely very worth considering. It's accessible to free to play because you can pick it up in the shop if you have saved enough. The one that I think is interesting and synergetic with her style will be Return to Darkness. At max level is 529, which is same as Cruising the Stellar Sea, but more so than that is whenever you hit a crit hit, you actually dispel 1 buff on the target. And what this allows you to do is hunt characters like her attack quite a lot. You have follow-up attacks and stuff like that, so your chance of proccing this is much higher. and it really falls in line with what Topaz and Numby is trying to be. She could either be a main DPS or supplementary DPS in a multiple DPS team. This way, at least you add her to a bit of dispelling kind of position. This is of course a Battle Pass paid Lightcone. For any of you who are wondering, I think it's very strong, probably one of the better ones used for Topaz and Numby because it's synergetic with a kit, allowing her to play in multiple DPS roles. So that is 1, 2, 3 of them, but let's talk about a few free-to-play options other than these. Of course, this one is free-to-play as well. I think sword play is going to be really good, same for most of the characters. If you have it at max superimposition, you have 18% damage dealt increase multiplied by 5, so that's like 80% damage increase. But I think one important thing is when you are trying to get the debuff or the proof of depth debuff onto a particular enemy and you have to forcefully change your attack target, you might lose these stacks as well. So I think that is a huge thing to test. We'll be doing more testing once the game goes live, and I'll also be giving my honest review of the character on the first day, so you guys can stay tuned for that as well. But initial thoughts, I think swordplay likely will still be quite good. Otherwise, I think cruising the Stellar Sea will likely be the better choice out of all of them. I don't really like Only Silent Remains that much, and the other two are not impressive as well. Of course, in the night is going to be quite generalistic too. 18% crit rate, which is rivaling, but this might not be as useful to her specifically as well, because she does a lot of attacks in terms of her follow-up attacking ability as well. Her ult also doesn't do big PP damage, which is another thing why she might not be able to use this to the best, but still a very, very strong Lightcone with a good amounts of base attack. We'll talk about a comparison between which one I think is better, like in the night, as well as this Lightcone for Topaz and Numby in another video. That's beyond the scope of this video, but I think more so than that, you want to talk about the other characters in the game who can use this Lightcone too. So let's go into the character screen real quick, and I'm just going to filter out for my hunt characters. So currently in game, out of all the hunt characters that can use the Lightcone, I think Zealer is okay. She can use the 18% crit, but I think cruising in the Stellar Sea likely will be much better. Other than that, there are no real follow-up characters in the game currently for Hunt to really maximize. So as you can see, out of all of them, the only one that really can fully utilize the entire thing will probably be Topaz and Numby herself. Yanqing doesn't even need the crit rate from the Lightcone, so at least if it was just like a crit damage Lightcone, at least you could justify like slapping it on Yanqing if you wanted to. But other than that, I think the only person that can use it is Topaz and Numby, making it a very niche Lightcone, but the second in line, as we saw, or the second best, is quite far from her playstyle, and I think that's a huge thing to consider. If any of you are thinking of picking it up, you really do like Topaz and Numby quite a lot, and it does make her into a much more versatile character that plays into a character that can play the multiple DPS. Maybe you want to play her as a sub DPS to another follow-up character as well. Anyways, do check out the other video which we have, which either talks about Topaz and Numby's Lightcone versus Zealer's Lightcone, or even the characters themselves. Anyways, if you appreciate such content, we do this every patch. Whenever anyone's feeling lost, you can always refer to these kind of content. I'll be here for you guys, and thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.